Hello and welcome to Tea, Tentacles, and Talk, cozy conversations about LGBTQ plus romance. I'm your host, Chloe Archer. I'm also a writer of sci-fi, and paranormal rom-coms, sometimes with tentacles. I have a great episode for you tonight, so take a moment to make yourself a beverage, get cozy, and join us for a fun conversation. This evening, my very first guest on the podcast, is Beck Grey. Beck is a non-binary writer of sweet, sexy LGBTQ happily ever afters. Why? Because everyone deserves all the happy. They live in the northeastern United States with their two adorable dogs. Weekdays are spent working their day job, but nights and weekends are devoted to writing stories involving hot characters, favorite tropes, and happy endings. Any additional time includes reading, laughing with friends, drinking red wine, and playing D&D. If there's cake involved at any point, it's a win. Welcome, Beck, and thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Since this is Tea and Talk, can you tell me, did you bring a beverage tonight, and what is your beverage of choice?
Brought tea.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Any particular kind?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of a tea snob.
I love it.
I actually carry tea with me wherever I go. I drink Earl Greyer from the Republic of Tea.
Oh, nice.
With milk, because this is a big question. Milk or lemon? No
right. Very much so. I am drinking tonight a green tea called Sleeping Dragon, and it's from a local company in town here where I get a lot of my tea. But I lived in Japan for a while, so I love green teas, all teas really, but I'll have a different one usually each time I'm interviewing somebody, but that's the one for tonight. All right, let's jump into some conversation here. My dog has decided he wants to join the conversation too.
Cool.
So why don't we start off by talking a little bit about what you like to read when it comes to romance?
I am probably 55-45 split. I read LGBTQ exclusively, but I read contemporary and then paranormal romance. I'll dabble a little bit in the urban fantasy and here or there I'll stray off the beaten path, but almost exclusively it's contemporary and paranormal romance.
Very nice. Okay, so I have to ask then, because it's part of the podcast, but tentacles or no tentacles, where do you fall on this spectrum?
That's a good question. It depends. I've read your book. I loved your book. I loved your book.
Thank you.
It was amazing. And that kind of tentacle, it's not your typical tentacle porn kind of, porn no plot.
Right.
That's not really my thing. I'm big on characters. I'm big on plot. That I need that in order to engage me in a story.
Right.
So most of the tentacle stories I'm a no. But hey, if it's a character who happens to have tentacles, that's one thing. If it's tentacles that happen to have a minor character associated with them, no.
No, I get it. I am very much a character reader as well. I connect a lot with characters who get me to care about them, right?
That's kind of a romance. So.
Right. Yeah, I feel like there's all these kind of boundaries, like, between romance and erotica and like what used to be called romantica. I don't know if they are still using that or not, but anyway.
I know it's the tag on Twitter, but with the mass exodus, who knows?
Oh, yes. No kidding. I think it's a little bit of a dumpster fire over there right now.
Just a bit.
So, Good luck to all the authors who are still over there on Twitter and trying to navigate those murky waters at the moment. So speaking of romance, let's talk a little bit more about what drew you to writing romance, and specifically LGBTQ plus romance.
Well, representation. I am part of the LGBTQ community, so not, especially being non-binary, there is not a lot of representation out there. So when I stumble on it, especially if, oh my God, if it's done well, and then I stumbled into fix-it fan fiction. So, and for those of you who aren't familiar with what that is, that's when there are LGBTQ characters, or maybe not, in mainstream media. And the showrunner or the writers or whoever get pressure to either kill their gays or wreck the story somehow so that things don't go where the majority of the fans want it to go. So fix-it fic is I'm now going to write what should have happened.
Yeah.
And that's where I got started. And there is a plethora of LGBTQ representation in fan fiction.
Yeah.
I had never read anything like it up to that point until I found fan fiction. And then as I'm reading, there is such a diverse pool of writers, from brand spanking new people to people who you scratch your head and wonder why they are not writing books. And I said, well, if the community is willing to handle all levels of writing, why don't I try this? So I dove in, and I loved it, and I got addicted. And then at a certain point, you graduate and you say, okay, I think I'm ready to write a book.
Yeah.
And so I did.
That's awesome. I mean, especially when they say, I think it's something like, only like 1% to 3% of people who say they're going to write a novel actually ever finish one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something to be really proud of. And you're on to your third book coming out. We're going to talk more about that later for sure. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what can readers expect from a Beck Grey romance story? What do you want them to get out of your books?
There will guaranteed be characters that you want to be friends with, that you want to adopt you, that you would love to be in a relationship with. As I said before, I'm very character driven. If the plot may be a little thin, hopefully not, but it could be, but you will always have characters that are well-rounded, that are real, that you could, absolutely meet. I don't like writing ideals. I don't like writing unbelievably perfect characters.
Gary Stews.
Right. Yeah. Well, there is part of me in every one of my characters, especially my main characters. I made a list and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, okay, that's me. That's but it's, right, but and they are not all me. It's just parts of, like, I know we'll get to it, but in my latest book, both characters have anxiety, different forms of anxiety. I have anxiety. I have a lot of social anxiety, not as badly as poor Jules, but he's my self-insert to a degree, only amped up quite a lot.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, well, that brings up an interesting question here for me. Do your books tend to spring to life from a character first or from an idea or plot element?
Most of my story will be character from the beginning. probably about 80% of my stories are, I think of a character I would really like to flesh out or learn more about. And okay, so what can I do with this character now? And then I write a story around them. Every once in a while, I will have a situation, something will happen in real life, or somebody will mention something, and I'll be like, that would make a really great story. Can I write a character that I would want to hang out with who would work in that situation? Because I have to write characters that I would want to hang out with, because when you're writing, you are hanging out with them for months. So you have to like them. Even the bad guys or whatever, you have to like them because you're going to be with them a long time.
Right. So I guess that kind of also begs the question, do your characters talk to you? I know a lot of writers sort of say that they hear their characters, just like sometimes they're trying to focus on something else and their character is there telling them, no, this is what we're going to do. This is what's got to happen.
Yep.
And sometimes they take over control of what's happening. Is that something that occurs for you when you're writing?
Very frequently. My next book, one of the main characters in my next book is very talkative, very out there, and he just spit out the entire plot chapter by chapter to me the other day. I never do this. I am a pantser. I might have the thread of the plot, and A to maybe, then we're going to go and jump to D, and then F, and then way over to Z, but not the chapter by chapter plotted out. This one, I have them right here. I have my little stack of.
Oh, nice.
I mean, like literally, and I'm like, I'm just going to keep going here. Hopefully nobody interrupts, and so I have probably 98% of the plot chapter by chapter already plotted for book 4.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's all because the character would not shut up.
So. I know nothing about that when it comes to character.
Right.
Very chatty ones myself, but yeah. Well, you mentioned already a little bit that you share certain similarities with some of your characters. Are there any other qualities that you think you share with them? How alike or different are you from, like, say, character like Jules in your upcoming book versus like the one who just dictated the whole plot to you?
So the one that just dictated the whole plot to me, I want to be like him. I wish I were more like him. He's very outgoing. He does not give a shit what anybody thinks. And he really doesn't. It's not like he says that. I might say, well, I don't care what they think, but I really do. So in a lot of ways, he's going to be my I wish I was character. Jules, like I said, he has my anxiety. Jamie has my need to constantly help people. Ash is my smartass side of my personality. So they all have little pieces. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we always bring a little bit of ourselves to any character, right? I think that's partly how we connect with them, but that's also always really exciting to see how characters can be very similar, but also radically different from us in both good and bad ways. So let's talk a little bit more about your actual writing process. You mentioned that you are more of a pantser, or I like the term discovery writer.
Discovery. I actually like that term better too. It sounds more professional.
I feel like I am always on a discovery journey with my characters. Like, I don't know where exactly they're going to take me. Sometimes I know the end point, but I have no idea how we're going to get there. And so I'm along for the adventure with them, which is always exciting. But, how long does it take you, for instance, to usually write a book? Are there specific places you like to write? And of course, like, this is often very divisive amongst writers. Do you prefer silence, or do you like noise or music or sound of some kind when you're writing?
I can actually write anywhere.
That's
I don't have, like, I could write in my car. I could write not while driving. I could write in my office where I am right now. I can write in my living room, outside, whatever, but it does have to be quiet. Noise will totally throw me out of the story.
Wow. Okay.
I would love to be able to, like, make playlists and play it in the background. And the only time I can do that is during sex scenes, when I'm writing sex scenes.
I love
it. Because I put on, the wah, 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 wah in the background, and
Bong.
Exactly. A little Barry White, or
Classic.
Actually, I do have a playlist. You can go search it on Spotify.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll try and link it in the show notes for listeners.
For a couple different books, but the one that I play relatively frequently is the one that I use. It's called Skin or something like that. And it's the playlist that I use when I'm writing sex scenes. So, and it's like 50 songs long, just so that it doesn't stop and I don't have to think about it. So yeah, awesome. You can go listen to that.
Okay, I will share that with our audience. Okay, so you mentioned that, of course, like many a new writer, you still have a day job. So you're writing when you kind of have free time. How long does it normally take you to write a book these days? Or does it vary from project to project?
I can normally sedately write about 2 books a year.
Okay.
I could probably squeeze in 3 if I pushed really hard and stressed myself out.
Right.
I proved this year I could do 2 books and a novella. So, hey, baby steps.
Congratulations.
But it normally takes me about, from start to finish, 4 or 5 months to launch a book out into the world.
It's a lot more work than I think some people realize if you've never done it before, for sure.
There are a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Especially when you're self-publishing.
Yeah. And it's infinitely, just to go a little dark here for a second, it's infinitely more expensive than anybody ever knows about.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest shock to me, getting into writing. I still love it. I still do it. But yeah, that was.
Well, I mean, if you really want to have a professional quality product, there are certainly ways to put out stuff that, you don't pay for an editor, you don't pay for a cover, etc., but that has its own potential pitfalls. So yeah, it is definitely challenging, but it's always really worthwhile when we hear from readers who really enjoy what we're writing. And I guess this is going to be my little plug to readers, to say authors really love it when you reach out to let them know. Send them a personal message on Facebook, send them an email to let them know you appreciated their work, because we have tough days too. We also get negative reviews. Sometimes we, made like, $10 on Amazon. You have your days where, hearing from a reader who really was moved or laughed their ass off at your book means so much to us. So
it keeps me going.
Hesitate. Yes.
Coming from fan fiction, where you'd post a chapter and you would immediately get feedback.
Yeah.
To going to writing books, which is a very solo adventure. There are hours spent by yourself in a room just with your characters, with no feedback and no other interaction. And hearing from readers, especially when they say, oh my God, this part right here, this part meant a lot to me, or
Right.
I, laughed my ass off, or this made me cry, or I so identify with this character.
Yeah,
It keeps authors going.
it does.
That's the fuel in the gas tank, guys. Keep it coming.
Yes. Words of wisdom. Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't be shy. We will never be angry if you want to tell us how much you like our book.
Right. Or you know what? And in all fairness, I read my reviews. I read all of my reviews, even the ones that are like painful to read. I read them. And the reason that I do is because I always want to keep getting better. And I want to make sure I'm giving the readers what they want. So I've had reviews where people said, this particular thing right here, I'm tired of reading about that. I'm tired of seeing characters do X, Y, Z or whatever. Okay, I filed that away. I'm not going to be doing that again, or at least not for a very long time. So I actually do pay attention.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't feel like we don't read it or we don't care, or we do, and it means a lot, good and bad. Just remember, be kind.
Right.
You can say critical things in a very kind way.
That's true. It's true, for sure. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what's your favorite part of the writing process and what's your least favorite part?
My favorite part is the brainstorming. And then they could do this, and then they could do that, and I'm going to make this character come in, and so that whole, and I do a chunk of that by myself. I start the process, and then I get with my writer friends, and I'll be like, here's what I came up with, and they'll be like, oh, and then you could, I'll be like, and then so it's we feed off of each other, and it's a whole lot of stuff put in the pot, and it doesn't all end up there. It's which ingredients do I really want to put in this particular book? But that's my favorite part. The building on the ideas.
Little possibilities.
Right. And then the book never ends up like that anyway. So, so I have this lovely plot going. The book, I'm sure, will not look like that at all by the time I'm done.
Yeah. The characters sometimes railroad that, for sure.
Yeah. Or somebody shows up and starts stealing scenes, and you're like,
what?
Well, I hadn't planned on you having a book, but I guess you're going to have one now. My least favorite part of the writing process is not really part of the writing process. It's part of the after writing process, and that's the marketing. I'm not. I can do it, but that's like a whole other full-time job, and it's not creative in the same way that writing is creative. And I love the writing creative part of it.
Yeah.
I don't even mind the editing, because I'm always still writing while I'm editing.
Right.
Oh, and then and I think I need a scene that does, so there's still a lot of adding or taking out or changing going on during the editing process. I'm not a particular fan of that comma doesn't go there, and the whole punctuation, and you've used the word nod 17,000 times in this 20,000 word document, but
Good. Okay, so I guess you've been writing for a little while now. If you could tell your younger writing self or aspiring writing self anything, what would it be?
Keep writing. People don't realize, especially for younger creatives, that all criticism isn't constructive criticism.
Yeah.
And as I was a squirt, and I had a teacher tell me, this is crap. This is not any good. And I stopped writing for decades.
Yeah.
Like, because I didn't think I could do it.
Right.
And every once in a while, I, hear somebody chirping in my head and be like, nope, I can't do it. Somebody else could write you, but I can't write you. And then, you get to a certain point in at least for me, I was like, I'm letting one person dictate. So I would tell my younger self, you know what, just do it anyway. Just do it anyway. Even if you suck, just keep doing it, because you won't suck as bad.
Right.
It just, by doing it, you improve.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't pay any attention to the people that are out there telling you can't do whatever it is that you want to do, because you can.
Right.
It may take you longer than your average bear, but you'll get there.
Well, and I think nowadays with just so many opportunities with self-publishing, it's really opened up chances for people that weren't there before. I know when I was younger, I wrote, granted, a very bad first novel that I tried to shop around with agents, and I had some interest, but it never went anywhere. And it just left me thinking like, oh, this must be really impossible. Like, you must have to be like just some special super genius to be able to make it, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of stopped and didn't do fiction writing for a really long time because of that. And so I would definitely concur, like, don't give up, keep at it.
Especially in our genre.
Yeah,
because right now trad publishing is, they're sticking their toes in, but it's in my opinion, at this point, it's still only for show.
Yeah.
To appease the LGBTQ audience. They haven't committed. And
agreed.
That's why 90% of LGBTQ writers are indie.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like the only place they're investing more is YA.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yes.
So, I mean, there may be possibilities there, but, we don't have time to necessarily talk about it tonight, but like there are also trad publishing, as we've seen with the Simon and Schuster case that's gone on recently with Penguin Random House and everything. Trad publishing isn't what it once was. Advances aren't what they once were. And it's very hard to make a living as a traditionally published author too. So, more are going hybrid. And obviously some are just, cutting out the middleman and just going full steam ahead with self-publishing. So yeah, I think there are at least fewer barriers now than there used to be.
And we are seeing indie publishing making impacts on trad publishing.
Oh, for sure.
Things like trigger warnings, things like, LGBTQ characters. So we're having an impact, which is really nice.
We really are. It's very exciting. Okay. So I guess maybe let's talk a little bit about some of the surprising things you've learned in the process of writing your books. Has anything kind of come as a shocker or a pleasant surprise to you about all of this?
We talked about a lot of them. The expense was a huge shock. The thing that I wasn't expecting and was pleasantly surprised about is, and I have a feeling this is very, very specific to our genre, but just absolutely the amazingly beautiful people that are in this community. That's true. LGBTQ indie authors are all about lifting each other up and helping in, do you need some advice on this? Let me get you in touch with the right person to do that. What can I do to help you? Hey, come on into my Facebook group. The amount of sharing and legit caring that authors in this community do was absolutely shocking, absolutely flooring, and is the most beautiful thing about the writing process. I got to be honest. It's a great community.
Yeah. We really are. I think, like, we're still small enough that we have each other's backs most of
Yeah.
the time. I certainly want to see the genre grow more over time. I don't know what effect that will have, but yeah, I think that we're really all about trying to lift each other up, and that's certainly an objective of this podcast, right? Is to help lift each other up and share our successes and accomplishments, and also just share with each other. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
really wonderful. Um, okay. Well, we mentioned earlier the importance of, hearing from readers, whether this be constructive criticism about our writing or things that they really love. Can you share with us maybe one of the more heartfelt things you've ever heard from a reader that had an impact on you?
Absolutely. I had somebody reach out to me via a Twitter DM, and I gotta be honest, I'm barely on Twitter. It's not that's not my main social media platform. But they had said how much one of my stories meant to them, that it was a comfort read. And I mean, I have comfort reads, and I know what those are. You're having a bad day, you are in a bad situation, you are in a bad place mentally, the anxiety or whatever is like,
Yes.
and you go back to those books where your friends live, and you hang out with those guys, and it makes things better. It doesn't maybe fix things, but it makes things better. And to have somebody tell me that something I wrote was their comfort read blew me away.
Oh, I'm getting all verklempt.
I know, right? I kind of am too. And that was probably almost, that was possibly could be the most impactful thing somebody has said to me too, because I want to keep writing those kinds of books.
Yes.
I want these characters to be that for people. The friend that you go back to who will help you through that. I mean, it's a safe space.
Yes.
That's what I want my books to be. I want my books to be safe spaces for people.
I feel like this needs to be part of your branding now, right? Like, seriously. I mean, I think there's stuff you could do with that
Sweet,
would be very
sexy, safe spaces.
Right.
I can see it now.
Read a Beck Grey book where it's always a safe space, or something like that. Again, we're not experts in marketing. Okay. So as some of my listeners probably know, I'm totally a sci-fi geek, and so I've got to ask: Star Trek or Star Wars?
And that is like, for I don't write science fiction, but I consume it in mass quantities. I am, it has been said that if a movie has space in it, I'm in. If a movie has explosions in it, I'm in. If a movie has explosions in space, I'm in heaven, right? So that's not a really fair question, but I actually do have an answer.
Oh, okay.
I have to go with Star Trek because one, I grew up on it.
Yeah.
But two, it seemed more intimate. Well, it was a television series. So you had the weekly episodes. So you really got to know those characters, and you got to go into the personal backgrounds of these people.
Yeah.
In detail. We got to see everybody's families, and we got to hear the stories of how they got into the academy and blah, blah, blah. Whereas Star Wars, although there are books, which has a lot of the backstories, on screen, you don't get a ton of that. You get some of it, and you get some of it that wasn't done really well. Although, in fairness, you got the same thing with Star Trek. There were some really bad movies.
Yeah.
But I just think that Star Trek got into the details more. And that's what I like. You know, I want to know about the equipment, and I want to know what games they play, and I want to know, you know, what their quarters look like, and, you know, whatever.
Right.
And you really get in that in Star Trek. I'm going to go Star Trek.
Well, and Star Trek has so many kind of like franchise spin-offs. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so I was a total next generation kind of girl most of the way.
Deep Space Nine, Enterprise.
Yes, yes. And like there were just so many fun gadgets. Like, don't get me wrong, lightsabers are super cool, but like I would take a holodeck over a lightsaber.
Right?
Right? Like, I want to go.
Ready on the holodeck. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the holodeck is basically like immersive fiction, right? Like, you get to like be
it's role playing.
Yes.
D&D nerd.
Right. I'm totally giving you like a high five through the screen here, but yes, that's epic.
Yeah. Could you imagine playing D&D on a holodeck?
Oh my God. That would be fascinating. Like, I mean, and being able to like embody your character in a like,
right?
Really, yeah. And not have to make the costume, because while I like the idea of cosplay, I can't sew to save my life, so I can't make my own. But if the holodeck will make me a costume, you know, I'm happy with
writing books.
Well, exactly. Right. Exactly. Well, let's kind of when you're not writing, what kind of stuff do you like to read? And in what format? We talked a little bit about kind of contemporary and paranormal. Are you mostly like an ebook reader, or are you an old school print lover, or do you like audiobooks? What is your mode of preference?
I am not a hoarder. I am a declutter person. I don't like knickknacks. I mean, I have some. I could turn the camera and show you all my nerdy shit that's on the wall, but for the most part, I don't do stuff.
Okay.
So
minimalist.
It's right. So it's 95% of my consumption of books is audiobook.
Oh wow. Okay.
I am an audiobook fiend. That is I would prefer to listen to audiobooks over reading anything. I can imagine better.
Yeah.
Plus, I get to do it. I can listen and do my day job. I can listen and do my chores. I can listen and drive. I can listen and do, you know,
multitasking, baby.
You know, so yeah. I go through probably 15 to 20 books a month conservatively.
Whoa.
Just because I'm always listening.
Yeah.
I stand at my desk at work and do work and listen. And people know that now, so they don't try and talk to me in my doorway. They wave.
Yeah.
Without the earbud. You know. And then after that is ebooks. And the only time I do paperbacks is when I can get one of my favorite authors to sign a book.
Yeah.
And then that becomes a collector's thing versus something I'm actually going to read.
Yeah, I'll be honest, you know, I grew up in the age where paperback was the only option for a long time. And I have a still pretty expansive paperback collection, although I've tried to weed it down slowly, because like with every move, it gets harder to move all those freaking boxes of books.
Right.
But, at some point I'm going to eventually phase a good majority of them out. I do like to keep certain collector's items, but, at first I was a really big, holdout on e-readers back in the day. And I was the fool who used to travel on trips with a small suitcase that was just books in addition to the suitcase with my clothes, right? Because I could go through a whole bunch in a trip.
And I was always one of those people who could read in the car.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Plane, train, automobile,
right.
I can do them all.
Right.
And the first time I brought an e-reader on a trip with me, I was sold. I was sold. And the bigger thing for me too, especially now that I've hit middle age, is my vision's not so great for up close stuff. And so I love the fact that e-readers, you can increase the font size of the book. Now when I look at paperbacks, I'm always squinting, why is this so freaking small?
Yeah. See, I'm the exact opposite. My close vision, I can still read that ridiculously stupid tiny print on boxes of, little boxes. So I still read my ebooks on my phone.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do that. I mean, I can, but I have to enlarge the font quite a bit. It's not my preferred method, the phone, but it'll do in a pinch. But yeah, but audiobooks, that's great. I mean, I'm sure that there are some authors out there who are I want you to be my ideal reader.
I probably am. I probably read you or listened to you, whatever. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's a perfect segue into my next question, which is, what are you reading now? Or what is something that you've read recently in audiobook that you would recommend?
Well, right now, today, as a matter of fact, I finished The Fall by May Archer, and I am currently listening to Biomechanical by E.M. Lindsay.
Ooh.
And I just finished the, why am I drawing a blank on what it is? It's Louisa Master's latest in her Dragon series.
Oh, yeah. Remembering the Here Be Dragons, or
love the book. Was wonderful.
I'm horrible at remembering titles too.
Yeah, well, when you're it's 3 books in 24 hours,
right.
So it's a little hard to keep them all straight.
I'm impressed you have time to write as well. Although I think it's interesting that you can listen to audiobooks and be able to concentrate on the work for your day job, but you have to have silence when you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be the opposite.
Tells you a lot about my day job, doesn't it? There's a reason I'm still in that job.
Right. Well, sometimes it's good to have that, stable source of income when you start out writing, and it's not easy to jump into the full time, but I know I certainly hope to get there one day. I think many of us do. So yeah, we'll keep lifting each other up on that for sure. Okay, so tell us more about your Love in the Pacific Northwest series and your upcoming release.
So Love in the Pacific Northwest is a series of contemporary LGBTQ romances that basically follow 3 families. It's a bunch of friends. It's a friend group, basically. Nice.
So they are standalones that could be read out of order. Okay.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I try and be very cognizant of. I'll have cameo appearances by people from prior books, but you don't have to read those books in order to get 98% of the current book. Mm-hmm. So in the current book, Choose Me, I have the characters from Embrace Me, the prior book, are in a couple different scenes in this one, but it's group scenes, and there's dialogue, and you get to see them again and have your little warm fuzzy, oh, look, that's my friend, and then they go away, and it's the main characters for this book. And this book basically follows Jules Evans that we met in the prior book in Embrace Me. It's
Yeah.
Quinn's best friend. And Jules has major diagnosed social anxiety. He's on medication, or he has medication for it if he needs it, and he goes to therapy for it. And it pretty much is part of his life. It is an everyday something he has to deal with. His love interest in this book is Eric Osof, and Eric is Jules' brother's best friend. So this is a brother's best friend romance.
Brother's best friend trope. Ching ching.
And Eric and Jules have basically been attracted to / in love with each other for decades. Okay. But Eric had a lot of things going on in his life, and basically what happened was Steph said no. And so they weren't, that was like, nope, not happening. Yeah. And then the story starts.
Ooh, okay. I like it. Yes, I will. Fully transparently, I had the pleasure of beta reading this book as well as the one before it, Embrace Me, and they're both fantastic. So if you haven't checked those out, make sure to do so. It's a really great series. One of our listeners did have a question for you about the series. They wanted to know why you chose to set it in the Pacific Northwest. Especially since you live in the Northeast, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Seattle is always a city I wanted to visit. Especially as an LGBTQ person. It has a reputation of being very inclusive, of being very accepting, having a very large LGBTQ community. They have like 17 million Pride festivals. Yeah. Like, you could spend 3 months having a Pride festival in the greater Seattle area, which is fantastic. And I say they have a reputation only because I don't live there. My best friend does live there, so I've been there. Yeah. And maybe someday I will live there. Ooh. But who knows? But it's a beautiful area. It is. From what I know of it, it is very inclusive and accepting. And that is someplace I don't like to write the negative side of the LGBTQ experience. There's enough of that out there.
Right.
And I am a soft marshmallow. I cry at Hallmark commercials. That one damn Wells Fargo commercial with the two moms, sob every time. I know it's coming, and I'm still like, where's the Kleenex?
Right.
So I can't write that. I can't read that, but I can't write that. So I wanted to set my series, and I will always set my series in locations that, even if it has to be fictitious, will be very accepting, very inclusive. So the conflict will always come from something else.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've seen some important shifts in particularly romance in more recent years where, at the start, I think, of the genre, a lot of it was about being in the closet and a lot of angst about the coming out process. And
that is still valid, and that still happens. And it is absolutely, I respect those storytellers. Mm-hmm. It kills me to write stuff like that. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I tend to skew toward the light and happy side of things. So I want to see the people who are out and happy and proud and confident and, living their lives and having fun adventures and crazy shenanigans and, that kind
right. Exactly.
That's great. That's great. Sorry, my dog here has decided he needs to be part of this adventure.
As they do.
They do. Yes. Well, One of our listeners also wanted to know what is next for you after this, and do you have any plans beyond the Love in the Pacific Northwest series?
Well, yes and yes. I have plans to the Love in the Pacific Northwest series is going to be a 6-book series.
Okay.
4 is plotted.
Yeah, I heard that character demanded it.
Right. 5 is actually written.
Oh, wow.
I have to edit it a lot, but it is written. And 6 is just hanging out there like I know what it's going to be about and I know who it's going to be about, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But I have time.
Sure.
After that, I'm kind of kicking around an idea which I don't want to think too much about because then I will start to focus on that instead of finishing this
I know
series.
that problem, yeah.
But listeners, give me feedback if this is something that you think you might want to read. I'm thinking about, the McDougal cousins maybe having a spin-off series.
Ooh.
We've not met any of the extended McDougal clan.
No.
And, I have things that I didn't get into Save Me or Embrace Me that percolate in the back of my head, which could very well work their way into books about the McDougal cousins. So
love it.
I would probably set it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you would probably be seeing these cousins in books 1 and 2.
Right.
So and since I traveled to Seattle, again, I keep thinking, especially with it being winter, I should set it somewhere warm. So I could go take a field trip for my book to like New Mexico or something.
Oh, nice.
Someplace warm.
Right.
So
yeah.
I
sympathize. It's Minnesota winter here right now. And yeah.
I'm sorry.
Got my big sweater on.
Yeah. So listeners, in the comments, go ahead and tell me if you think that you'd want to read about the McDougal cousins and where you would want to read this. What place? Where?
Oh, well, that is a perfect segue here to me. Having you tell our listeners about the exciting giveaway you're going to be doing in connection with this episode, and perhaps offering some comments on that question you just gave us could be one of the things that they might respond to.
Well, and you can throw in anything I forget because my mind is like a sieve.
No problem.
But I'm going to be giving away a signed paperback.
Nice.
And what the heck? If I hadn't already planned on this, let's do a $10 Amazon gift card.
Okay.
So leave me questions.
Yes. Okay. So I will be posting this video in the Tea, Tentacles, and Talk Facebook group. And in that post, if you want to comment there, you can enter for a chance to win a signed paperback and a chance to win a $10 Amazon gift card. We'll draw 2 winners.
Sure. If you would prefer an ebook, that's fine. We'll do that too.
Okay. Cool. We'll see what answers or responses we get here. Before we sign off this evening, where can readers find out more about you and your work online?
The easiest place is go to my website, which is www.beckgrey.com. You can also go to my Linktree, which is Linktree /Beck_Grey. Mm-hmm. And that's all my social links are all on there. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm vaguely on Twitter. And I'm on Tumblr too, guys. I never left. So yeah, I keep thinking like the mass exodus from Twitter is very much like the the access from Tumblr.
Right. Yes.
So yeah, that's I got a newsletter that you can sign up for if you go to my website, and there is a free novella when you do that, and it's part of the Love in the Pacific Northwest series. It's called Charm Me, and it's some side characters that get their own story. So
very cute, very cute. Well, that's a wonderful incentive to get a free novella and try out the series, see if it's for you. Your books are available on Amazon and in KU,
right.
And there's also audiobook for Save Me, and Embrace Me audiobook is coming.
Embrace Me audiobook is being recorded in April, and Choose Me will be recorded in July.
Nice.
And I'm kicking around the idea of getting the novella recorded too.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Fun.
We'll
so lots of great stuff for listeners to look forward to. Well, once again, thank you so much, Beck, for joining me here tonight. I had a lot of fun talking with you, and I hope that readers and listeners are going to enjoy tuning in. Please make sure, if you haven't already, to join the Facebook group. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel here, and stay tuned for more news about my upcoming December episode, forthcoming soon. All right.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks so much. You have a wonderful evening.
Thanks. You too.